Thank you, everybody, and welcome to this evening's BBFA support webinar. This evening, we're going to be looking at marketing and communications. So a broad topic, but one that I will try my best to navigate and provide an introduction to for you as for those certainly who are just starting out, or those who just want to provide and get a little bit more insight into their marketing efforts so far. So a bit of format and housekeeping. As I've said previously, if everybody can turn all videos and microphones off, please. If you do want to use a question, please do just unmute yourself if you can, rather than use the chat function this evening. If you do choose to use the chat function, I will get to you at the end of the session. And as you know, we are recording it, and it will be available to view at a later date again if you wish to go back to it and relook at any resources, or obviously just listen back to what myself and Paul say. On that, actually, should just mention that we are very privileged to be joined by Paul Guttridge tonight, who is the chairman, I think, secretary and social media extraordinaire for Caversham United, and he has come along and joined us this evening to provide a bit of insight into what he does for the club's social media, how it started, the different kind of things that he does, and some hopefully provide some tips and give you the opportunity to actually ask him any questions as somebody who is also a volunteer at a grassroots club doing the same thing that many aspire to be. So we'll get to that at the end. And that's the good stuff. First of all, you've got to go through me, I'm afraid, and you have to listen to all the other bits in between that I'm going to try and hopefully impart for you. So what we're going to do is, if you can see, we're going to cover a few elements today. Brief introduction to marketing and communications. And when I say brief, I'm not even sure that that's necessarily possible. It's such a wide and broad topic. You can delve into this for days and weeks and months. You could spend hours just talking about one platform of social media. So I have tried my best to keep it as short and succinct as possible, while still providing some useful information and a bit of background as we go. We're also going to touch on safeguarding and how and what resources are available from safeguarding in terms of how you run and operate websites and social media, because there are some FA safeguarding policies that I would and will certainly guide people towards for advice. We're going to then touch a little bit on club and league websites and really what they are, the benefit of having them, the benefit of updating them, and that will lead us into how to create engaging content. And we'll get some sort of tips, and we'll just share some sort of examples of engaging content and how you might do that. And then we'll move on to how you use social media effectively. And then after that, it will be a very good segue for Paul to come in and talk about what he does with Caversham. So to get us underway, the first question, and I suppose the question that everybody asks at some point or another, if you're in the marketing industry, is what is it all about, and what do we mean by marketing? And it is a very good question. You know, it's, as I've said, it's such a broad topic that what does it actually mean, and what do we mean when we say it, and how can we do it? So the Chartered Institute of Marketing is the professional body for marketing, and they provide the following definition of what marketing actually is. And it is the management process responsible for identifying, anticipating and satisfying customer requirements profitably. Now, if I have a background in marketing, and even that sounds a little bit intimidating to me, okay? So if it does, don't worry about it. We're going to try and break it down, and we're going to try and just look at actually what that means and put it into context for football. And so whilst it might seem intimidating, when you break it down, you probably find that you're already doing a lot of what that definition is, perhaps even really without realizing it. So to put it into a football context as an example, so for example, spectators to a game, you've got your loyal fan base. They attend every match and you may know them well. You may even have made an effort to get to know them better over time in order to understand what they like and what they need to enjoy their experience. So, for example, I'd be thinking about you as a spectator at a game or a spectator that you have at yours. Do you have the same seat? Do you always like the same seat or like to stand at the same side of the pitch or the same end? Do you always buy a programme or like a programme? Do you like brown sauce with your bacon butter and not ketchup? If you instinctively know that about these people, if you've made an effort to get to know them and you have instinctively known that you've made a decision to make sure that that fan is as happy as they can be so that they feel valued and continue to return, you also know that if you can do the same to encourage new fans and find out what they like and what they need and come up with solutions, then they'll return match after match. And this is, in essence, marketing. That's what that is. It's taking the time to find out about your customer base, your members, and about anticipating and satisfying what they need and what they want and what makes them happy. So this is in that, all of that in essence is marketing. We do it every day without really thinking about it. So, albeit perhaps unconscious, it's still what we do. So how do we make marketing a conscious decision, a conscious effort and act? So one of the things is to be strategic. You create a strategy. You need to create a strategy. You need to understand exactly what you've got and how you can develop it so that you can continue to grow as an organization while staying true to your brand and your vision. And this is something that will come out later on when we talk to Paul, as Caversham have a very strong brand identity. And so to help you do that, to enable you to do that, and this is where it gets a little bit in depth in terms of marketing, so I won't stay on it too long, but there is a popular framework called the marketing mix that can be used to help you explore what your strategy is and help you form the basis of any marketing strategy that you might do. And whilst also helping you to identify any key issues that can affect your marketing. So ultimately, really what they are things to consider moving forward when you look about how you can market your club or organization. So it's called, as I said, the marketing mix. Traditionally, they are known as the 4 Ps. You may have heard of it. They are, as you can see on the screen, product, price, promotion, and place. And as you would expect, marketing is an ever-changing, ever-evolving industry. It changes from one day to the next and over time as the world evolves. We have new technologies, we have new trends that have emerged, and so what you need to do in order to satisfy your marketing strategy also changes. And so people have adapted this framework to be the 5 Ps and add people, and the 7 Ps to add process and physical evidence, and 8 Ps in some cases, 12 Ps. So you can see that how it evolves and how it will always adapt, and how there can always be things that you can do more of. And that's one of the things that I would say is to not be intimidated by. If you have a good foundation and a good start, then you will continue to build and grow as you go on and as you evolve. So we'll use the 4 Ps as a good starting place. Okay, and so by product, again, building this into how you can relate this back to your clubs and your organizations. So product is, what's your product or service? Well, this is your team. This is the team. This is the club. And how might you be able to develop that product as you go forward? The next one is price or fees. So what are we talking about here? These are things to consider when you're talking about how you're going to market yourselves. So how much does it cost? That could be anything from going to a game if you're at the level where you have a ground and you charge for entry, but it also could be your fees. What are your subs? What is your pricing model? Can you change it? Does it need to be changed? The next one on there is place. And that really is, how do people access your product or service? Is it in person? Do you have your own venue? So of course you go to a match, but if you don't have your own venue, then that's something to consider. And you think, well, how can you expand your access to your product in future? And is that maybe potentially something about going online? can you do, and how that might work as being social media updates or video highlights. So you may have seen that some clubs have invested in something called VO, which is an online video highlights package, which is helping people to put stuff on YouTube. So things like that. The next one is promotion, and this is really, how do you communicate what you do? You already do. Everybody in this meeting, everybody watching this, does this already. That you all promote and communicate what you do. It's just, it might not be yet as a strategic placement as you would like it to be. So this is where promotion, and this is what we're going to, focus on this evening. So this is everything you do to tell people about your organisation, your branding, your advertising, any offers you might have, any social media. This is all part of the promotion side of the marketing mix. And this is, as I said, what we're going to be focusing on. Now, if you consider all of these elements together as this is part of marketing planning, and this goes towards helping you develop a marketing strategy. And that helps you to form objectives and targets around what you want to achieve and how, because ultimately, this is what you use social media for. This is what you market for. You market for a reason. You want people to join your club. You want people to come through the gates. You want people to come to the bar, or anything like that. You want followers, and you're always trying to get something from somebody. And this is how you start. This is how you do it. You form a plan. Okay, and so part of it also, it's important to consider how your wider marketing activity, and this is what we're talking about, supports your other club resources and work alongside it with an integrated approach, such as your development plans, your other business documents, anything else that you have as a committee or as a club that will help set you up for success against your objectives, both in the short term and the long term. So that's the kind of scarier bit. That's the bit that kind of all delves in. And again, like I said, I am really, really scraping the surface of this and what it is. But it's more just to give you an idea of some of the things to consider when you're looking at your marketing and how you go forward. And like I've said, we are going to look now just really at the promotion side of things, but it's just bear it all in mind as we go through it and as you look back on this as well. So good thing is, well, where do you start with this? So first thing I would say is, are you set up to succeed already? So, and by that, I mean, the first thing that I would suggest that you do, if you haven't already, is add marketing and communications as a regular club committee agenda item, and discuss where you are as an organisation. You can discuss all of the 4 Ps as well of where you are. What do you want to achieve? What do you want to, how do you want to achieve it? What are your organisational objectives, and what marketing can you do to support you getting there? And then topics such as, if you're thinking about then starting to do promotion and marketing, you go, what have you got coming up? What's happening at your club? Where are you in the season? What can you talk about? At each committee meeting, have a think about what you've done. Can you promote it? Is it a good story? Is it something that people want to know about? And also where you're going, because planning is really quite key for not just social media, but marketing in general. So that's something to consider. Consider what you do already. Now, social media platforms, what could you use? What do you use? So I don't for one minute think that people who aren't doing anything are already have a marketing strategy in place. It's quite the opposite as well, and some people who already do marketing won't have one in place either. So this is not to say that what you're doing or haven't done is either good or bad. It's more around best practice and seeing how you can actually give what your marketing efforts a strategic place. And so in terms of social media platforms, one thing I would say for this is, you don't be intimidated by them, but also you don't need all of them. I think there's a lot of pressure out there to always be on the next big platform. be a little bit safer in the knowledge about what you're doing if you're just starting out. We'll get you some guidance on, say, websites. So look, if we can see here, there's a few sections, some new ones that have come in the last couple of years. There's a guidance note on running websites and social media platforms for clubs, digital communications with children if you've got youth clubs and you're thinking about doing social media, how to stay safe, tips to ensure online safety. There's one in there around photography and filming, which is very useful as well if you're sharing anything on social media. And then an interesting one that's new this year, which is around fake news and what to trust online, and that's really kind of education as well around youth players and for youth clubs. So these have all come, these guidance documents have come from, over the years of the FA have been asked for guidance and advice to help clubs create fun and safe environments. And really, they come in themes, sections. You can explore them. There's so many more of them. They're available on the fa.com. You'll find top tips in them, templates in some of them. They are great resources to browse through and see really what might benefit you going forward. So that's something to bear in mind, and I can obviously share the links to these afterwards as well if that's of interest to people. So the next bit, just to discuss, as we say, so I said, the main focus today is really going to be around considering what that fourth P of that marketing mix is, which is promotion. And so, in terms of a club website, we're thinking, well, how do you promote yourself? Whilst you might not have a strategy in place at the moment that informs how or why you do it, it's highly likely that you are already doing it in some form. So let's first consider your base, your home online, which is your website. Now, your club website can act as your hub. It's the one-stop shop for all your club activity. Any information that can bring a wealth of benefits as well to a club. So it's essentially your shop window, a way for people to find you and for you to tell them who you are and what you offer. And I think it's important to realise that actually your website might be the first interaction somebody has with you online, might be the first chance they have to come across you online. If they can't get to the pitch on the weekend to see you, if they're searching for football in their local area or searching for the club, it could be the first opportunity they have to actually interact with you. And so first impressions count. So you don't have your own physical space, perhaps. What does your online space say about you and say about the club? So what are you making? Are you making the most out of a potential opportunity to impress, that first time to impress somebody? So that's something to think about for websites as well. And if you don't have a website, or perhaps you're thinking of upgrading your website, they aren't necessarily as hard to manage as you might expect. Some popular platforms are making it easy to edit and update sites using tried and tested formats which focus on simply just adding the content. So, gone are the days of HTML and web building and hex codes and all sorts of things. It really is a lot simpler now. And what you find is that you can have some platforms where pretty much websites are already built, they're tailor-made, and you simply drag and drop and you move things around and you make them look as you want them to look while you're editing the content on the screen. And there are lots of different providers out there as well. You can choose between sports-specific websites, so providers such as Pitch Hero, ones that people know. My Club Pro offer football sport websites as well, and they have pre-built templates. So that's one of the I suppose benefits of having a sport-based platform, is that they already have the relevant sections that you might need. So teams, fixtures, things like that. Of course, there are also generic websites and generic website hosts and builders, so like Wix and Squarespace, etc. And whilst they are less associated with sports platforms, they are equally as easy to use. They just perhaps won't have all of those features that you'd expect to find within a sport-based one. So really, it's more about thinking about how and exploring which kind of website might suit you, or what you want to do with your website, depending on what you feel is right for you. And of course, thinking about cost implications as well, because you have host costs and is anybody managing it for you? So in addition to promoting your club, another thing to understand here as well is that a good website can actually also help save on volunteer administration, with some providers also now offering integration with key FA sites and platforms such as Full-Time, so integration of fixtures. And one of our partners, My Club Pro, they actually offer integration with FA Full-Time, and there's lots of different sort of tips and things that they do that help save time. So I would recommend, if you are looking at a new website or even getting a website for the first time, to have a look. We know that so much more is going on online, and obviously anything we can do to save time, I'm sure, is a bonus. So that's just a brief overview of the club websites. I'm going to move on now just to creating engaging content. And actually, what is good content? So we've so far worked out, we've had a look at our club as a whole and our development plans and our business objectives, and we've worked out how our marketing can help support that. We've started to build a home for all of our information online with a website. We've looked at best practice for safeguarding. Now we're thinking, we've got the website, now what are we going to do? What do we put on there? What is good content and how do you create it? So what I will say first of all is this is most likely subjective based on what you consider to be good content. Everybody's different. There is no one size fits all. So the best advice I can offer here is to think of 3 key points when you are looking at content creation, and they are: is it relevant, is it informative, and is it engaging? So does it matter? Does your audience care about it? Does it help provide value, and is it something that people will want to engage with or will find useful? Because there's a difference between saying weather's a bit bad tonight and, hey everybody, we've got training tonight at 7, the weather's looking like it's going to be a bit bad from about 7:30 onwards. Don't forget to bring your water jackets, your boots, get ready for a fun and messy training session. So there's different ways of saying stuff, and it's just making sure that you have that social element to what you're saying. It's also about asking, are you just about results on the pitch? Because where we think about football and clubs and teams, you think, well, the football side of things happens on the pitch. That's where your results come from. That's where you do your training and everything. That's in essence what your football club does. But what do people actually know about you as a club? So it's not just the football side. You're trying to get people to invest in you in an organisation. And so what are you about? That comes back to deciding and discovering what you are. That's your strategies, your objectives. What do you as a club want to say? And if somebody were in front of you, if somebody were face to face with you and said, tell me what your club is about, what would you say? Do you just care about people turning up to training on time and the result of the game, or is there more to your club's story? And I think perhaps the key word here is story. Now, again, we go back to remembering that social media is social. It is about engaging with other people. And, nobody wants to listen to something that's not engaging. And so you have to tell people what your story is. You have to make them interested, engage them, and help them become a part of your journey. Take them along for the ride. So think about what information you can share. Can you introduce your committee members online? Can you get your coach to say hello in a little video and invite new players to come along and try it out? That face-to-face, don't underestimate that face-to-face approach. And actually turning up to a training session to a new club sometimes and you don't know anybody and you think, well, what do I know? Having that ability to see that coach's face and know who they are before you've arrived is invaluable. And it's little things like that can help people become more invested in your brand and in your club. You also think, is there an element of social responsibility from the club as well? So are you involved with any charities, or do you do great work in your local community? So do you have a community arm, or do you help out at local community events? And is it something the whole club gets involved in? Can you give a shout out to sponsors? And will the work off the pitch you do help you attract sponsors and volunteers to the club? So you're almost looking at it from that different side of things as well, and not promoting what you have, but what you have to offer. And so all of these elements help build your club story and help people become invested in your success. Now, if there is more to your club than just results and training times and things, then post more on that on your on your communication platforms. So tell everybody what you're about. Now, staying on this, I think we've now thought, well, here's some different options that we can potentially look at. You know, what can we do to promote the club and tell everybody what the club is about? But then you also have to think about what format that content comes in. So what are you sharing? Are you sharing text? Are you sharing images? Are you sharing videos? And I think there's one statistic that I like in particular that's quite powerful for showing engagement is that posts which share an image or a video are up to 70% more likely to get engagement. And I think that's quite big. So it's not necessarily what you say, it's how you say it. How are you catching people's eye? How are you getting your message across? Now, again, the difficulty here is you might be thinking, well, you know, we haven't got images, we don't have you know, a design suite, we don't have somebody who can do video content, but you can still create assets to share that will help drive engagement by enabling your followers to like them, to share them, to just catch somebody's eye. And you don't have to have anything from a top design software studio. It doesn't have to be anything from a professional. If you don't have Adobe, then don't worry about it. If you haven't got Microsoft Publisher, that's fine. You can create stuff even on PowerPoint. And I think, again, we go back to that word of, is it consistent? Because it doesn't have to be the best. It just has to be consistent, and people have to be able to come to rely on it and expect it. However, that said, you know, if you are looking for something that looks a bit more professional, that you can get with ease and that is perhaps free, then platforms like Canva, which is what we've got on the screen here, are really good for providing professional looking editable graphics tailored for different social media platforms. So this here on the screen that you can see is a sort of screenshot of Canva. It's an Instagram post template. So you can see I just put soccer in. It's American, so soccer, not football. But you can go on, type anything in, and then these are all here to edit. So this championship graphic on the screen at the minute, you can put in who are you playing next match day. So it's you versus the other team. Where is it? What's the kickoff time? You know, there's images to check. All of the graphics are changeable. You can change the colors, you can change the text, and you can save them to your library online. And this is all free. And so you can, when you've got the next game, you can go in, edit the template to say it's the new team, and then reshare it again. And what you've done is created a brand. So you can change those colors to be your club's colors, and so on and so forth. And you can see on the left hand side, there's lots of templates there to choose from. And actually, Canva is, as an option, is free. There's over 250,000 free templates, lots of graphics and things to do. So it's certainly something that I would suggest that you look into. Have a look, explore, make fun. There's so many things on there. So it's Instagram posts, but there's also templates for posters. There's templates for Facebook posts, Twitter. There's lots on there. So it's certainly something I would suggest if you aren't good with imagery or editing, but you'd like to, you know, just give your efforts a little bit of a boost or a refresh. So moving on. Now it's more around, we're going to talk about how effective social media and actually like what are the different platforms. And so there are an infinite number of social media platforms out there. There's new ones appearing all the time. You've obviously likely heard of some of the more popular ones. And they're kind of really broken down into what I consider to be three different areas. Some are social networks, and so that's kind of your Facebook and your LinkedIn. Microblogging, Twitter, and then media shares. So anything you share media on Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, etc. So Now, the graphic you can see on the screen at the minute is one that I love. I think it's brilliant, and just from thepixel.com, and it just provides a small insight into how the different platforms are positioned and how they each cater to a different audience or set of stakeholders. So, for example, Facebook and Twitter, probably the two most popular ones that people know or have been around long enough. They're both very popular, but they are both designed and used in different ways. So Facebook is a social networking site, and it's great to share longer posts, often more opinion based and with more details about events, etc. Whereas Twitter is what's known as the microblogging site, where it's limited characters per post. Messages are designed to be short and snappy and often in the moment. Now, you can see what I mean by this when looking at how the same content, the same message, is written in a different way dependent on the platform it's used for. And this is good practice to bear in mind. So as you can see from the graphic there, Facebook, I like donuts. That's my opinion. I like donuts. I'm going to tell you, and then I might go on a really long, rant about how wonderful donuts are, what all my favorites are, so on and so forth. Whereas you can see immediately there the Twitter, and just the way that the content is changed, it's to that immediate, in the moment, in the present, I am eating a tasty donut. So that's me. Facebook, I've sat at home at night and I've considered all day that I really like donuts, and I'm going to tell you all. Twitter is I'm having a donut right now and I want to share it with everyone. And then you can see obviously all the other ones. So like you've got your TikTok, dancing and singing with donuts. You've got Reddit, which is a discussion-based forum where you discuss all about donuts. Instagram, another one that is popular, and that is a media sharing platform. And so you might decide that actually your donut was just far too tasty, and so you needed to send a picture and share it with everybody. And so that's just a little bit it's a good diagram just to try and explain it and for people to get their heads around what the different platforms are. And so I would say keep the content relevant, not just in subject matter, but for the platform as well. So whichever social media platforms you choose to go with, as we said at the beginning, you don't have to have them all. It's probably not relevant to have them all. You consider what might work for you based on the kind of platform that they are, and whichever you choose and how many you choose to operate. So just keep it relevant and think about the content. So next thing on here is say how many. We talk about social media, everybody talks about social media and we think, well, everybody's on it, but actually how many people do use social media? And you can see from this graphic that this is from Digital Society report from We Are Social, and it was done on in January this year. And so you can see this is specific to the United Kingdom. Now, the total population of the United Kingdom there from January was 68 million, right? 53 million are active social media users. Now that's incredible. Just let that sink in just for a minute. That's nearly 78% of the population are active social media users. So 78% of us have a social media account, spend time and utilize a social media account. That is a huge audience. That is a huge potential audience and a huge potential reach. And not only that, but in the same report, We Are Social actually reported that users spend an average, users between the ages of 16 and 64 spend up to 6 hours and 26 minutes per day on the internet, with 1 hour and 49 minutes of that being people dedicated to social media use only. That's incredible. So when we look at that and when we think back to this stat around how many social media users there are, the 53 million, well, according to Statista, which is a statistics site, as of June this year, there were 50 million Facebook users in the UK. So that's nearly 94% of all active social media users in the UK have a Facebook account. And so the same can be said for Twitter, although that's only 17.5 million, so a much smaller section of the pie. And when you get down to looking into different sites that you use, you'll see that there's different demographics as well around what age people are when they use them. And so immediately you're thinking, is Facebook the right one for me? Should we just be on Facebook, or should we just be on Twitter, or should we be on something else? You can look into this and you can find out statistics of where your club where your football club would be better suited to use based on demographics. So I think we also would look at what platform, when we say like what platform is good for you, what platforms do people use. This graphic here is from January 21, but it's only from the past month from this one. So it's really just to give an insight, a bit of an overview as to actually how it looks. But you can see the percentage of internet users between the age of 16 and 64, how that has used each one of the following platforms just in the last month. So nearly 80% of people in that age bracket used YouTube in the month, which is incredible. Facebook nearly 73%, and then you take out your messenger service things. You go down, you've got Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and so Twitter is 44% there, which, you know, it's a popular platform, but it's not the most popular one. And when you consider the importance that so many people put on it, it's good to consider actually what you will get out of it. What do you get for the effort you put in? And so you think, if you want to reach more people, would it be sensible to have a Facebook account over a Twitter account? So these are questions that you look for as well and look to answer. So just before we get into Paul, I'm going to rattle through this one. So effective social media, top tips for effective social media for me. This would be strategic, what we've already gone over. So this is what do you want to achieve. So we think back to the beginning of this presentation and how to get started with developing that marketing strategy. Bearing in mind objectives, targets, what and how to post on social media. You know, and whilst social media is fun, it's supposed to be fun, it's a social platform at its heart, it's also a communication channel. So again, it's that shop window, it's that first impression. And so anything you post will have an impact on the way your organisation is viewed by your stakeholders and the wider public, which will affect your perception. So it's just to bear that in mind, that you do have to have some thought process behind what you do, what you post. Another one is utilise tracking. And this is so you can know what works and what doesn't. It's just as important on social media as it is for tactics on the pitch. So if you know you lost a game, you know, the previous week because you were just getting absolutely hammered on the left, you're going to change your approach perhaps for the next game and look at what the other team does, and you're going to review those statistics, and you're going to think about what you do. It's the same for social media. And there are, with so many social media platforms now, certainly with Facebook and Twitter, there are inbuilt insight tabs that show you analytics. They show you how every individual post is performing, and they show you how your overall performance is on those sites as well. And so they're quite easy to use. It's taking time to just navigate what you see and having a look at it. But I would certainly do that. It's about thinking, you know, there's no point in just putting something out there and sort of like hit and hope. You need to know whether it works. And so if you find that all of your posts that you put videos out on are outperforming your posts with images on, then you think perhaps let's go down a route of looking at how we can do more video stuff and really kind of feeding in with what your customers want and what your audience wants. So the next one would be tag relevant people and accounts. So it sounds simple, but it's an easy one to overlook. Spend time getting to know your audience. From a purely football point of view, does your opposition have a social media account? What league are you in? Is the league on social media? Can you follow and interact with other clubs? And from kind of post types, can you tag them before and after a fixture? Can you say, great game, good luck for the rest of the season? You know, can you have that social aspect and actually pull people into your story? Again, it's about getting people invested in what you're doing. Next one I'd say is reach out and react. So by that I mean follow people back, say thank you, say welcome when people follow you, like something that other accounts have posted. And you know, and it takes a lot of effort, and certainly if you're a volunteer and you're doing time, if you've come up with if you've taken the time to do a post or create some content or do something, then actually just being able to let somebody know that, or hear from somebody that was good content, is actually a really nice thing to do anyway. But it also has the added benefit of you're engaging with people and you're driving engagement with others. So you're posting on theirs, which obviously then gives them the opportunity to see you and see your profile and post with you. So it works again. It's that what you get out, what you put in, and ask questions. get people involved, it is social, as we've said. So there are options on social media platforms, certainly Facebook and Twitter, to do polls, to do quizzes, to do votes. And I know Paul is going to talk about that in a little bit, because they've had some success with that. Overall, we come back to this thing of balance and consistency. So when I say balance, we're talking about really how you can manage your time with it, understand what it brings to you, and what you can get out of it, but also whilst remaining consistent in what you post and what you create. And so top tips for being consistent there is to plan ahead and brainstorm ideas. So make use of the inbuilt scheduling features. So this is something else that is a really helpful tip, and again, time saving. Every platform now, you can actually pre-schedule a post. You can go in, you can spend half an hour on a Sunday and write out the post on Facebook for Tuesday, schedule it, and it will go on Tuesday. You can send another one on Thursday, it will go on Thursday, and you've done it. You don't have to worry about it. Now, what I mean previously from the balance is thinking about, do you always schedule posts, or do you do some live posting as well? So do you go on and spend that time to actually interact and say hello and welcome and thank you to people, which obviously you can't schedule. But if you have planned ahead, you will at least know some, if not all, of the content you want to post, and however often you choose to do that, daily, weekly, monthly, you decide, but it will at least help you understand what you're going to be creating. And I would say use templates and guides to help you stay on track. So this is something that, and this is, again, like we said, take it to the committee meetings, have this as an agenda item. So these planning sheets are from CoSchedule, and I use these in my work here. I meet with different staff members. We discuss ideas, we work them out, we say where we are in the calendar, what things we've got going up, and then I plan ahead as to what I'm going to do for them to promote their area of work. And I have different folders and sheets and meeting plans for my work that I do with every individual member of staff, and they're all different. But I plan in the same way, and that helps me keep on track of what we're doing. And so I would say do all of that, plan ahead, plan your best time to post, make use of the scheduling tools on the platforms for success if you haven't got the time to be on it 24/7. And really, all I can say other than that is that it has been a whistle stop. I'm sorry, like I said, there is a lot to cover, and perhaps we can do some more sessions on specific things later on or throughout the season. But if you can take away anything, I would say it's to be consistent, as I said, it's my buzzword, but also to have some form of strategy in place. If you have that, if you know what you want to achieve, it will ultimately be easier to achieve it. Okay, and so if you have your strategy in place, if you can get good content, if you can find relevant things to say, then you will get there. People will engage, and that leads me on very nicely to our special guest and Paul. So I'm just going to see if Paul can unmute himself. And so, well, there you are, Paul. Lovely. So just want to say, Paul, again, thank you for joining us. I'm going to hand the floor over to you a little bit. Do you want to just let people know a little bit about you and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Paul. I'm kind of the head of Caversham United Football Club, and tend to get involved with most of the things on and off the pitch. As Steph mentioned earlier, I kind of chair the club, do the social media, but also manage the team and play. So a bit of a jack of all trades, I'd say that. And unlike Steph, I have absolutely no background in marketing at all, and somehow managed to kind of build Caversham United a social presence that's on my last check, we are the football club with the 5th most followers in Berkshire. So
Mm.
it's gone pretty well. Um, and I mean, I mentioned I've got no background in marketing at all. I've learned quite a few useful things there from Steph for our own social media use going forward. So thanks for the top tips there, Steph.
Oh, very, very well. You're very welcome. I mean, it's interesting because I know I said to you, like, if you can just sort of, and I mentioned this in the beginning, around that, actually when you start to get it right, when it does happen, and that slow process, it is a slow process, but when it starts to go, it is like a boulder running down a hill. And I think you perhaps can agree with me there, if you just talk a little bit about when you took over the club and when you started the accounts to where you are now.
Yeah, so it it certainly did have that kind of boulder effect. So I took over the club in summer 2015, and we kind of sort of got by doing the bare minimum for best part of 3 seasons really, and it kind of got to a point in late summer 2018 where we were struggling quite a bit as a club. We were struggling with kind of the engagement of players and things like that. So I kind of set up a Twitter profile and put a few tweets out to see if we could kind of gain some interest locally from players, and we had a few players join off the back of it, and we got to a healthy total of about 70 followers, and things were looking okay at the club. And from starting to use Twitter a bit more as a club, I started to notice what some of the other teams out there were doing, like mainly talking some of the big professional teams that you'll do well to sort of emulate. But the likes of AS Roma and Bayer Leverkusen were really kind of using social media differently to a lot of the other clubs around. They'd sort of moved away from that corporate, very serious approach and really started to engage with fans and other clubs, and bring a really fun element to it. And they started to gain a lot of engagement from these posts. And with reference to Twitter in particular, I thought, well, why can't we try that and see if we can gain a few followers and sort of grow the stature of our club a little bit? And it kind of went from there, and that we had about 70 followers by this point, and started to engage with like Roma's tweets where they were having a bit of fun on the socials. And a couple of times they sort of replied to us, and it was like, oh, okay, we're Roma are starting to notice us. This is cool. And then they ended up following us, and so did Bayer Leverkusen. And then I think Roma used to do a feature called Twitter Team of the Day or Team of the Week, and they featured us as their feature team one day. And I think that day we gained like 400 new followers or something crazy just from that spotlight from Roma's sort of tweet.
And
And
that really highlights, Paul, just there, one of the things I was saying about reaching out and actually reacting to people. And so there's that benefit of your engagement has been driven by the fact that you made a conscious effort to reach out to another team who liked what you said, what you did, and gave you the courtesy and the benefit of liking back and following back, and you grow from there. And that's one of the things, obviously, that we were saying is around, you get out what you put in. And so that effort to communicate has paid off for you.
absolutely, and the engagement is really key, especially on looking at platforms like Twitter, where there is a lot of interaction between different accounts. That it I can't emphasize enough how key that was, and how much it sort of benefited us as off the back of that. And just looking at some of the things Steph's got on the screen here leads me on quite nicely. From our continued sort of activity on social media, and from engaging with some of these bigger clubs, a potential sponsor got in contact with us. And at this point, as a club, we didn't actually have a sponsor, and we'd struggled to find anyone locally who was willing to sort of put money towards a small club with one team, and not up to much. But a sponsor got in touch with us on through Twitter, and his business was all around football kits and football shirts, and between us we developed an idea that potentially worked on our rapidly growing sort of Twitter follower base, and to combine that with what he does around kind of football shirts, and we decided to come up with a competition for followers or new followers to design Caversham United's next home shirt, and the it just it
It
got a
took
bit
off.
crazy from there. Yeah.
It took off. Yeah, I remember it at the time. I remember seeing it at the time, thinking about it, and when watching it go and seeing all of these kits designs come in. And I think it's one of those things you can see the success you had with it. But I mean, it's interesting because you took over in sort of 2015, but it was a few years before you actually really started the club accounts. And actually, you chose to not only embark on social media and promotion of the club, but you actually decided to go down a bit of a makeover route as well, didn't you? So you did, think you did well. You did the name, the nickname, didn't you? You went out and asked people what should our nickname be. You
Yes,
did
and
redesign the club badge,
yeah,
redesign the
and
kit.
the three kind of things all tied into each other ultimately, and
Mm.
we ended up with loads of brilliant kit designs. And we thought, hang on, these have all come from people on social media. Why don't we let the people on social media decide what the winner's going to be? And entered a series of kind of votes where we ultimately ended up with and a brand new home shirt featuring the new club badge, which featured the goat, which was our nickname that they decided. And
Mm.
because of that kind of engagement and sort of buy-in from the people that had just come across our club and started following us, they almost felt a sense of loyalty towards our brand, even though they'd only known us
Mm.
for a couple of weeks. And I mean, ultimately for us, this was just mind blowing at the time that people wanted to buy this shirt
Oh,
that
shit,
they'd
yeah.
helped to design, and we were able to generate sort of revenue for the club by selling shirts that people on Twitter had designed for us, and
Yeah.
that's something we've kind of kept going as part of our identity as a club. The kit competition's just finished its third iteration now, and it's our kind of shirt for next season. And last season with the kind of greeny bluey colour shirt that Steph's got on the screen there, I think we ended up selling close to 100 shirts, which generated significant income for the club, and that all kind of started from
That was
engaging
across,
with
that was across the world as well, wasn't it? You had I remember seeing pictures on social media of international people in different countries wearing the
uh,
shirt.
yeah, they've gone everywhere. We've got a few out in the United States. Someone posted one today from Dubai. They've gone everywhere. It's kind of crazy, and every now and then we'll get a tweet from someone saying, "I've just seen someone wearing one of your shirts, like on a train in Yorkshire," and just really random sightings of our shirts.
But
It's
it goes to show that when you start something and you keep going it and that consistent approach, it does pay off. And I think, you said you started with 70 followers at one point just a couple of years ago, and you're now up to what, 12 something thousand, is it?
12 and a half, yeah,
Yeah.
just more than Bucks and Bucks FA.
I thought you were going to get that one in there. Yeah, we did have a little race at one point, and you've overtaken us. Yeah. So, but again, that just goes down, and that is testament to the effort you put into it. And actually, I think just while you're there, if you can just give a kind of brief overview there of actually how much time you spend on it, because as we said at the beginning, you are a bit of a one-man band, so you do the social media yourself. You're the secretary as well, and some other roles at the club. So just as an insight for the guys on the call, how much time do you spend?
So it does vary between day and day, and you mentioned a good point about kind of scheduling posts and things like that, and I tend to kind of check our social media. I commute into London as part of work, and that means I have kind of an hour in the morning and an hour in the afternoon that I'm sat on a train doing not much other than listening to a bit of music. So I use that time to kind of do some of our, like, well, my general life admin, but also stuff for the club, like whether it's club admin or the club's social media, so I can get posts set up ready to go, because not many people are on Twitter at 7 in the morning. So I can schedule stuff to go out like around lunchtime when people are on their phones in their break at work, or get a few bits set up ready for later that evening. So I tend to use my commuting time, but you can kind of, I think what Steph said about consistency is spot on, really, because if you've got social accounts across 5 or 6 different platforms and you're trying to post on all of them at the same time, it's
Mm.
going to be really difficult to maintain that, especially if you're kind of responsible for that yourself and you haven't got any help. So I think being consistent, it is important, and that's, I mean, as a club, we haven't gone down the route of Facebook. We haven't gone down the route of sort of videoing games and sticking them on YouTube. We've kind of, we initially started with Twitter. We got an Instagram, which is great for showing off like photos of things. Like Instagram is great for showing stuff like new shirts and fixtures and match results and things like that, just in the images. So we stick to those 2 platforms, and people do ask us, "Oh, are you gonna get a YouTube, and are you gonna get one of the cameras and do it?" But reality is, for me, that I wouldn't be able to maintain doing that week in, week out. So
Yeah.
there's no point me invest in it, do it for 2 weeks, and then give up on it.
Yeah, and I
So
think that that's key there, because you recognize that. And like we said at the beginning, consistency and doesn't have to be the best quality ever. It can, or the most accounts. It can just be what's manageable and what you can achieve. And actually, you recognize that doing this on your own, 2 platforms is enough. And actually, if you try to do more, you might end up actually damaging your overall brand or perception, because you can't keep up with them. And I think, that is something that is commendable, and it's something that, to actually say, like we said at the beginning, it's not easy. You don't have to have every social media platform going. It's knowing what works for you, what's manageable, and what you can put the effort into. So that's really key, I think. Just before we sort of sign off, Paul, is there sort of any top tips that you would suggest to people, either who are just starting out like you did at the beginning, don't really have much of a following, and how do you get to build that, and obviously, just as you've said already, using different time in the day to schedule and plan. So is there anything you'd say?
a few things, really. One is to use others for inspiration. I think Steph touched upon this earlier, but have a look and see what other clubs are doing, and maybe don't directly copy all of their posts all the time, because if they latch onto that, they might get a bit annoyed. But you use people for inspiration, like see what's kind of trending almost, and what sort of things people are posting. To you can ensure what you're doing is relevant to the audience. Be consistent, as again Steph mentioned about keeping it manageable so you can maintain it. Um, Enjoy it. It is really good fun, and we have had a lot of fun through doing the socials, and it's led to a whole host of things for us. Like I mentioned about some of our kind of famous followers and stuff. Like we've got clubs like Bayern Munich and Benfica and all sorts of top teams following us, and that's also helped us in other things. It's kind of more than just a face value relationship, in that we've also used social media. One of the things we like to do is engage with sort of charity and try and use our platform positively to sort of raise money for an awareness for charity. And as part of that, we did a big sort of charity raffle last year, and we were able to reach out to some of these clubs we'd formed partnerships with through social media. And like Roma sent over like 3 or 4 shirts for us to raffle off. Like FC Cologne, who are also the GOATs, so there was that connection there. Sent over signed shirts signed by the team, and like all sorts of things that literally just came through engaging with them on social media.
And that's, like we said before at the beginning, around the fact that communications at its core is about relationships, and that's, you know, building relationships, sustaining them, and you know, as you said, having fun. Social media as it on its own, it's meant to be fun. That's the point of it. It's supposed to be social. You know, the different platforms, you can have slightly different approaches to them, but yeah, I think it's a fantastic approach. You've done a really good job. Thank you for coming on and sharing it as well. And I'm sure for the guys on the call, if you do have any questions for Paul or for myself, then, you know, please do feel free to unmute yourself and ask those. What I'll do is I'll stop the recording now, and then if there are any questions, then we can do that later. But I just want to say thank you very much for coming on, Paul, and thank you for talking to us about it and for sharing your experiences. And then thank you to everybody else this evening for attending. So thank you very much, and have a good evening.